Unit 3, Lesson 5, Using Integers in Real-Life Situations. So there are certain words that represent positive integers and other words that represent negative integers. Let's look at a few. So the first set of words we're going to look at is increase and decrease. So positive would mean something is increasing and negative is decreasing. We'll see this most frequently in temperature or degrees when we talk about an increase in the temperature or a decrease in the temperature. Another one would be ascent and descent. So ascent means to go up. When you think about a plane that's ascending, right? And so that's ascent or ascend, and then descend is going down. Then we have above and below. So above, temperatures above zero or below zero. And again, there's many applications for each of these words. I'm just giving you a couple. Gain or lose. If you think about football, right, we're gaining yards or we're losing yards, right? When you lose yards, you're going in the negative. Same thing with money. You may gain money or lose money. Deposit or withdraw and spend. So when we think about money, and these are words you may not be too familiar with. So when you deposit money, it means you're putting money in the bank, okay? So I know sometimes kids will say, well, if I'm putting money in the bank, I don't have it anymore, I'm losing it. No, when you're depositing money in the bank, you're actually gaining money, okay? It's your money, you're saving it, right? And then when you get a little bit later in the year, we'll learn about interest, so you're actually earning more money, okay? So deposit is a positive number, okay, a positive integer. You are depositing it into a savings account. You're not losing it. Then we have a withdrawal or to spend money. So obviously, you know, when you spend money, you're losing money, okay? When you withdraw it, it means now you're taking it out of the bank. Now, normally when you take it out of the bank, when you withdraw it, you're going to spend it. So that would be a negative. And probably the most common one that you're used to seeing is above sea level and below sea level. Okay, above sea level and below sea level. And I want you to keep in mind that below sea level doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, someone or something is under the water. Sometimes you can have a city or some landform that is actually sitting below sea level. That doesn't mean that it's underwater, but it means that the actual sea level, like if you look at a topographical map, you'll see that the land is actually below sea level. Okay, so let's just look at some examples. Example 1, the temperature was negative 16 degrees in the morning and rose to negative 5 degrees by 1 p.m. How many degrees did the temperature rise? So what we need to do here is let's think about it in real life, all right? If we have a thermometer, and I know these might be a little bit hard to see, so I'm going to kind of draw my own. And feel free to draw pictures here. I think it helps. I think pictures help the most. So we're at negative 16 degrees. Let's keep in mind this is 0, right? And then our positive numbers go up here. So we're at negative 16, and it said that it rose, so it went up, and by 1 o'clock it was negative 5. So we want to know by how many degrees did the temperature rise? This is what we're trying to find, the space here. Whenever you're looking for the difference between two numbers, difference is subtracting, okay? So think about this. You are finding the difference between negative 16 and negative 5. And some of you in your head will say, oh, 16 minus 5 is 11, so there's 11 degrees difference. Good, so that's the answer, 11 degrees. So it rose by 11 degrees. If you wanted to write an equation for this, since finding the space between two numbers is subtraction, we could write it like this. We have negative 16 minus a negative 5. And we know we're going to rewrite it. So we have negative 16 followed by, and this right here gives us a positive 5. Signs are different, so we subtract, and we take the sign of the higher number. Now here we don't really need that negative 11. We don't really need that negative because the question just wants to know by how many degrees did the temperature rise? Well, it rose by 11 degrees, right? It can't really rise by negative 11 degrees. So 11 is our answer. Okay, so just to recap, draw a picture. It will be very helpful, right? If you want to write an equation, think about the word difference, or a subtraction is the difference between two numbers, the space between something. Okay, and then use your common sense to make sure it makes sense. Right, let's try example 2. A group of hikers, and I know this is example 1, should say 2. A group of hikers begin at an elevation of 29 feet below sea level. So right away we know that's negative 29. If I have a picture here, I'm going to label it. I'm just going to say that this is sea level, so that would be 0. So we're down here, negative 29. They traveled up the mountainside until they were at an elevation of 245 feet above sea level. So let's say we're up here now, 245 feet above sea level. So that would be a positive integer. And again, if there was no picture, you could even just draw something like that, or even just a line with the sea level, and then you're here, negative 29, and now you end up here, or the hiker ends up here. What is the difference, so this word actually says difference, in the elevation from where they started to where they ended? So we want to know the space here, so the difference between the two. Well, let's look. If we want to just think of it in real life, to get from here to sea level to 0, we know that's 245 feet. And then from 0 to negative 29 is another 29 feet, right? The negative is just telling us the direction. So we want to know the total number of feet that they climbed. So here we're going to add them. So we're going to get 14. And then 4 and 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Did I do this right? Yep, and then we have 2. So our answer is 274 feet, right? Because we want to know what is the difference in the elevation from where they started to where they ended. Well, if they started here and they ended here, they climbed 274 feet. If we want to write an equation for this, we can say 245, remember difference means minus negative 29. See, so you're thinking, well, why am I adding if we're subtracting here? Well, remember, when we rewrite it, 245 followed by the opposite of negative 29 is a positive 29. And here we go, that's why we added. So 274 feet. Now let's look at one more example. This one has to do with banking. Renee has a balance in her bank account of negative $18. Okay, so that means she has less than $0. So she's actually borrowing money here. She makes a deposit of 25 when she gets her birthday money. How much money does she have in her bank account? So she has a negative balance. She deposited 25, which means plus. So think about what this means. This is called a bank ledger. We're going to start with her balance. Her balance is negative 18, right? And she deposited $25. So she's adding $25 back. So what is her balance now? Well, let's see. If she started with negative 18, followed by a deposit of 25, see what she has left. Well, my signs are different, so I'm going to subtract 25 minus 18. We can have to borrow here. So we get $7 and take the sign of the higher number, which is 25. So her balance now is $7. So think about that. She had negative 18. So she had below zero. Okay, if we want to think of this number line again, here's zero. She had this much money. And then she deposited 25. So she went up $25. So she went up to 18, right? And then she went 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. And she ended up at positive 7. So now she has positive $7. Good. If you need to hear this again, just rewind it and start over again.